Hello everybody, welcome into my latest live stream. My name is Kerry Holzman. Today is Monday, February the 25th, 2019. I'm getting a little bit of an early start today. Welcome in. Just looking over and saying hello to my friends here real quick, joining us early into the chat room. We've got Michael Mancini and Mark Baggett, Pete Unwin, Art Awesome, Andrew G, Gainsy95, Sean Ramirez, Jimmy Bateman, Eddie Casanova, John Craig. Roger Hall has kicked us off with a $5 contribution. Thank you, Roger. Thanks for supporting the channel. He says he really he's enjoying the Dell upgrades. We'll get back to more of those Dell upgrades, I think next week, if everything goes well. Not sure, I just don't know yet, but there's more coming, put it to you that way. Who else do we have in there? Sean Pace and Mick Ridgely, as well as Cindy Brady 2, Glenn Johnson, Tony Wallow, William Burligame, Carlos F., Ronald Nimcheski, Tony Vento, Donnie Seeger, Kevin Sears, Joseph Neal, Russell Franz, and Neil Garrett. Stephen Bernstein joins us, as well as CS Tech and Michael Hawley, Chuck Wolf, Wes Walkthroughs, John Wake, and Ray Sudbury. And Mahai S. joins us from Romania. So welcome in, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. And today we're going to continue where I left off with this build right here behind me. This belongs to a gentleman named Franklin. All the specs for this build are in the video notes below the video, and Franklin has ordered this and unfortunately went off of spec and ordered some RAM that had RGB lighting. He sort of made an executive decision, and it's got consequences as a result of the height of the RAM. The Dark Rock 4 cooler it won't work. It'll overlap the sockets for the RAM. So I'm catching those of you up who perhaps haven't watched the first two parts of this series. We went then to a Cooler Master Hyper 212 EVO, which is very inadequate for a 9700K. Don't even consider it. It's not even close to doing the job. And I was looking around my office to see what I had in inventory that perhaps I could offer to Franklin to solve this problem. And I have this Kraken X62. You guys might remember it, from a build a few months ago where it would not fit in the case. Well, he's not going to have any problem with fitment on a liquid cooler on this Phanteks Enthoo case. This is a beautiful case. It's very roomy, surprisingly lightweight for its size. So today what we're going to do is we're going to pull the cooler off. We're going to put the X62 on. Franklin's also asked me to add a 1 terabyte ADATA drive. These regularly sell for right around $100, but I will say, today and today only, Newegg has the Intel 660p 1 terabyte drive, which is NVMe for 120 bucks with a promo code. So 120 bucks with a promo code. The details are on my Facebook page. I'll see if I can add them. It's just for today, so there's almost no point in me adding the link to the video notes. There was an issue with the coupon code for Acronis Trimage. I found out initially I thought people were using the wrong link, but what happened was, for some reason, Acronis limited the number of times the coupon could be used. And based on that information, I can only conclude that you guys have purchased far more than they ever anticipated they were going to sell. So thank you for showing your support. Acronis has lifted that limitation, and the code will work again until February the 28th. And you can use it on February 28th, but after February 28th, the code won't work anymore. And it effectively gives you Acronis Trimage 2019 for $24.99, half off. So I suggest you take advantage of it if you're interested in it. So anyway, back to Franklin's machine. Cooler, add this drive for storage, and then we still have the graphics card, the 1070 Ti, to put on. And then we'll test it and see how it performs, and then I can do all the cable management and get ready to ship it out to Franklin. The previous build, the Judge's PC, as you guys watched the other day, that's completed and shipped out to his honor. And hopefully get this one out if everything works well. I hope to ship this one out tomorrow, and we bring in the next one. It's just nonstop, nonstop. I'm not bored. I'll put it to you that way. So, all right. So we got all the, everybody's caught up. We're all on the same page now, right? DVR mode is enabled on this live stream. And that means if you're just now jumping in and you want to know what you missed, you can just scroll backwards with your mouse like you would on any other video that's not live. And that way you can get caught up with the rest of us. And thank you for joining. Hello to Irving T, Colin Hilton, Gil Garcia, Randy Harris, and Thomas Carter. Hey guys, good to see familiar faces in the chat. And of course, Ben DeCour. Ben, thank you for all your support. Colin, thank you for all your support. All my friends in blue, thank you guys for all your support. And if you're not blue yet, just hang in there, man. Once I recognize you, once I start to see your familiar face, you too can be blue. I'd like to see everybody in the chat room blue. Yeah. See Reverend John O'Toole and Darren Gilholm and Platter Jockey, Sergio Kochik. Thank you guys. Come on in. There's L. If you guys have any problems, please go to L. Complaints, comments, suggestions, go take it right to L. Lotta Wynn says hello. William Donson joins us from Florida. You know what this means? I'm warming up my hands and getting ready to work. Bikey Becker's joined us. Good to see you, Bikey. Ray Burke and John Bonham. John Bonham. John Bonham was a drummer for Led Zeppelin. Franklin Adams joins us. Hey, Franklin. Craig says hello from Florida. Barry says he loves to be blue. Jared Blackmore says hello, and Adam Wood as well. Hello, guys. Hello. All right, I guess I'm going to start with pulling this cooler off. Now, there's this little debate in my head about running Prime 95 to compare the end results, even though I did this before, just to refresh it. But it's not even going to be a competition, right? I already know this is going to be inadequate. And I already know that's going to be more than adequate. I already know. It's like comparing, I don't know, a big wheel to a Porsche. It's a totally unfair fight. So take my word for it, or go back and watch the previous videos. This is an excellent cooler for other CPUs, but not this one. And normally I don't recommend all-in-one coolers unless you're planning to overclock. However, it will do a better job. There's no doubt a liquid cooler will do a better job than your average third-party air cooler. So in this case, it's a bit overkill, but everything in the system's overkill, so why not just be consistent and make it all overkill, right? Let's start taking some things apart. It's my favorite thing to do is take things apart, because I'm really good at that. It's putting it back together that's a little bit of a struggle, but that's okay. We can do it. So first thing I want to do is get some of this RAM out of my way, because it is right up against the fan on this cooler. And there's no way this cooler's coming out. And that is a small cooler, and it's already up against the RAM. And it's a tight fit to get my fingers in there and get that socket released. Come on, there it is. Here's one. I think that's all I got. Yeah, I'll take out another one just to be safe. Just to be safe. And it's so easy to pop these things in and out. It's a tight fit. All right, let's just try it this way. Whoa! I gotta have to test that now that it's fallen. But better that it falls than me bending it and potentially breaking the socket trying to get the fan out, because I can easily replace any bad memory, and memory should be able to take a little stumble like that. I don't want you guys to panic. This stuff's not made of glass. It's not that fragile, but it's also not indestructible. So I will have to test it now because, well, I'm going to test it anyway, but don't freak out. It'll probably be just fine. All right, now I can lift these levers up on the fan and take it off the heatsink. And let's pull the power cable from that fan. And let's grab the screwdriver here. Let's crank up the torque rating all the way up. There we go, we're ready. Give it a little wiggle. That thermal compound, if it's cold, it can be very difficult to remove it without yanking the, well, on some CPUs, not these. You could, in the old days, pull the CPU right out of the socket. Even on AMDs, you can still do that. With the Intel, though, it's a better socket design, in my opinion, than AMD, and you don't have that concern. So that being said, let's take that off of there. And I want to wipe off the thermal compound on the bottom here, and we'll get that cleaned up right now because it gets all over everything and it's difficult to get off your skin or, you know, whatever it gets on. So best to just wipe that off right now with a paper towel. Just get the bulk of it off of there. We're not trying to shine it up and make it reusable just yet. When it comes time for me to reuse this, then I will use some rubbing alcohol or denatured alcohol and a Q-tip and really clean it much better. So for right now, though, this is just a maintenance technique to keep things clean and to keep a small job small before it gets bigger. So we're just gonna wipe it off all together here. And of course, that Hyper 212 EVO will go back in my inventory and it'll appear in something else, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's not the right cooler for this build. It doesn't make it a bad cooler any more than if you have a two-seat car, a car that holds two people, and you need to move 4 people. It's not a bad car. It's just not the right car for the job, for that specific job. And so keep that in mind. Right tools for the right job. All right, now I'm gonna put the fan back on here. See, no wire hangers. See how Corsair does this? You just have a little groove. You get into the groove. And then you can prove your love to me. There it is. Oh no, gonna get a copyright takedown notice from Madonna now. Put that over there with the rest of my parts. This can go over there too, because I like to walk back and forth. There we go. I can take the back plate off, which is right there. And that's going to be in the little plastic bag with the motherboard box over here. Ah, here we go. Perfect. This was all the extra stuff for the Hyper 212 I had set aside. And in there is a little socket tool that's going to help me remove the nuts on the back. No power screwdriver for that. And so to do this, and it's a difficult thing to film without a camera person, but you really want to unscrew it from this side. And if you just let it hang, it might just fall down, but that's what we want to keep together. And for this, you know, I think what I'll do is I'll just put it on the end, and then I'll put all this in a little Ziploc bag and keep it all together, because these are components unique to the Hyper 212 EVO, and so if you lose them, well, could make the installation impossible without them. Certainly wouldn't be doing it the right way without them. I'll just loosen all these up right now. There we go. And now I can put the little, this is a little socket. And on the other side, it's just a Phillips head, so you can use a regular straight edge or a Phillips screwdriver to tighten those down. And we'll just put that right back, right in there, in its little spot. Keeps my OCD happy. All right. I was trying to turn these and they won't turn, so I do have to loosen the nuts completely, and then these pull straight out. Real easy. There's the third one, and then we got one more to go. There it is. And with that, I can remove the back plate. Ta-da! And we'll keep all this together. Just like that. Some folks have been asking, I guess they're new to the channel, as if I haven't talked about this 8 million times. This is the Panasonic EY7410. There's no link to it in the video notes because as far as I can tell, it's not made anymore. You can still find it online. You can find a lot of stuff that hasn't been made in a long time online. You can find, oh, I don't know, parts for a 1912 Model T. If you're looking for them, you can find them online. But I'm not posting links to it because if they don't make it anymore, when they're gone, they're gone. So again, this is the Panasonic EY7410. Multiple places do sell it, but I just don't know what sort of inventory they have. You should expect to pay about $170 US for the driver, 2 batteries, the charger, and a little carrying case. To buy those things individual, you'd be around $250. So $170 is a pretty good price. This is a professional tool, and I don't recommend people that are first-time builders buy one of these or any electronic screwdriver because it's too easy to cross-thread a screw. And if you're in business and you're really familiar with the screwdriver, you know what it's supposed to feel like. You know that you can feel a cross-threaded screw. I'll leave that up to your judgment, but I don't recommend you guys use these. I use it to avoid carpal tunnel syndrome and because I'm impatient, and this is just faster. That being said, I love this screwdriver. I love it. Is that a good thumbnail? Such a dark. All right. Cheers. Where am I going to put that SSD? I guess I could put the SSD back here in the back. Back in the back. Not back in the front, and not front in the back, but back in the back. So we got to put a place here for 2 SSDs, and I believe we could put some more somehow, some way through here. And let's not forget, he's already got Franklin is really going overboard on this And this is not a configuration, like if Franklin had spoke to me, I would have told him don't do this. I would have said, look man, you really got to think this through. This is not, you're just opening up lots of opportunities for failure here. So he's got M.2, he's got a mechanical drive. I think he's got 2 M.2s and a mechanical drive. I'd have to look at the parts list. I've got so many systems I'm working on, I can't remember what I put into what. But between having 2 M.2s, plus he's got the mechanical drive down here, and now he wants to add another SSD, that's a lot of stuff to lose. That's a lot of stuff to lose. And I don't know how you're going to back it all up. I mean, if it's that important enough to save, I don't know how you're going to back it up. But he's the customer, and this is what he wants, and this is what I'm going to build him. But if he had talked to me, I would have advised him against it. I would have explained all of this. Unfortunately, that's not an option. But I want you guys to know, if you're following along and you want to build an identical system, my first recommendation to you is, if you need a lot of storage, go with a mechanical drive for your storage, and then get the fastest thing you can get for your boot drive, most notably an M2 NVMe drive. Now that said, certainly the motherboard has, excuse me, let me just turn this where you can see it. More Amazon packages every day, every single day. More parts for computers arrive. So we've got less parts for another build. That'll be later this week. Anyway, if you're going to build your own machine, pick yourself out a good fast boot drive. Make sure it's roomy enough for you to install your applications on that you use often, because that's where all your performance is going to be. Now you can buy desktop storage drives up to 14 terabytes right now in one single drive that fits down here, negating the need for any more M.2s. You don't need more than one. Let me rephrase. Most people don't need more than one. It looks like we only put one. See how these move? So there's nothing under here. So this one has one. So he did it right until he wanted to add that. I would not have added this, but he wants it. Now, Franklin may have a way that he's using this machine that would justify that. I just can't imagine what it is. And again, it's going to complicate backing up, because now he's going to have to back up 3 drives instead of just 2. And as long as these computers, as long as the storage remains in the machine, it needs to be backed up outside of the machine. In other words, if Franklin's thinking I'm going to use one of these for backup, that's not a backup. If anything happens to the machine, your stuff is gone. And I mean viruses, ransomware, thefts, fires, floods, all the things nobody thought would ever happen to them, happens all the time. But don't worry, because it'll never happen to you. That being said, and I think I'm clear on that, I'm installing it because the customer wants it. Let's see what's in this X62 box and see if we can't get that installed. Let me move my Coca-Cola out of the way, because I'm going to need some space. There we go. A bunch of you just cringed. You went, oh, did he just do that? There we go. As always, we always put our boxes perfectly over there. And let's see, we've got that. Got some fans. Got the water pump and radiator. Back plate. Thumb screws. fan screws. That's it. That's all that's in the box. Boy, that little piece of, what is this called? Corrugated cardboard is heavy. Just this piece. Put it right over there. Now to install this, we're probably going to have to take this lid off of here, which I imagine comes off some way, shape, or form. Didn't I take this off before? I thought I did. I can't remember what I've done on this now. I want to say this slid off some way. Oh, you know what? Maybe not. I see two screws. You see how I'm not referring to the directions? I've worked on so many of these so many times, and I've been so confused and disappointed by the directions that they mostly all go together the same. And if you just look at it with a critical mind, you should be able to see how it comes together and it comes apart. That being said, you should never force anything. If you're trying to take something apart or trying to put something in, and it requires more than a little resistance, if it offers more than a little resistance, you're probably doing it wrong. And you can break this stuff when you exert too much force. And always enjoy your build. If you're getting to a point on your computer build where you're getting angry, frustrated, it's time to step away, go watch a little TV. It'll wait for you. It's very patient, very, very patient. So let's see what happens if we take these two screws out right here. Let me get my little door stop out so I can stop this lazy Susan from spinning. There we go. Let's do that one. And let's do this one right here. Perfect. And are there two on the other side, or does that just pull forward? Looks like there might be two on the other side. Take a look. The top still may have to come off. There may be some screws up at the top I'm not seeing. And I know this top comes off. I'm just trying to remember how. I think I took the top off of it. On the previous video, I can't remember. That's a good start. Let's come around to this side and take these two out as well. Interesting that the screws that go into the front are longer than the screws that go into the back. I don't know why they would do that since it adds to the cost of manufacturing, but I'm gonna put them in order of how I took them out. And there's the top. A little disappointed that it takes screws for that to come off, but I suppose if you went to lift, if you improperly lifted the computer, the whole top would come off if it didn't have screws to secure it. And maybe that's why they do that. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm going to set it right there for now. Let's take a look up here and see what I can see. All right, so the tray that's going to hold the radiator in place has a screw. Is that a screw? Where is it? Looks like there's a screw right there. How am I supposed to get to that? There's a screw right in the back. There's two of them. There's one there. Absolutely certain I am going about this. I'm about to go about this the hard way. I'm about to. Happy birthday to Justin Roiland, the creator of Rick and Morty. It's his birthday today. I think he turns 11. Hey, congratulations. The show is awesome. I can't wait for season 4. Let me think. This case is such an easy case to work on. I imagine that this comes out a lot easier than I'm going at it. But I do see a couple of screws up here where this whole lid can come off. But it doesn't quite answer my question as to how those screws in the back come out. Or if they need to come out. They certainly appear to need to come out, and I cannot access them at all. They're just not. They're not visible. Let's take a look. Oh, wow. Wow. There's like a big washer on one of them. Huh. It almost looks like it's going to slide towards me. Just the way they've got it on a tray. It should be pretty obvious. Sometimes you can look right at something and not even see it. I do see one screw back here that looks like it needs to come out. Let's try that one first. Let's take this one out. This one right here. And maybe that one and that one too. Maybe there's 3 that have to come out. Let's try taking these 3 silver screws out of the back and see what that does. Ta-da! See? Just think about it for a minute. Styrofoam is staticky. It's all over. It won't come off. Did I get it? I think I got it. All right. Yay for Carrie. See what people are saying in the chat room. Let's take a look. Niles Van de Sand has contributed €5. He says, today, after 11 years of loyal duty, my computer has died on me. Take care, my dear friend. It's too bad you paid me in euros because I'd love to fix it for you, but the shipping from wherever you are that you're using euros is probably more than the computer is worth, but we can bring back to life any computer. I see Ron Hillier, my good friend Ron. I have known, you guys have asked about, like I get a lot of emails about taking in an apprentice or an intern. I've only taken in one, taken him in, it sounds like he's at the pound. I've taken him in. He gave me his puppy dog eyes. Actually, I think I asked him to help me. I don't think he asked me to teach him. I was like, come here, I'm going to teach you. And I don't think he had a choice. I kid. I've known Ron since the 1980s. You know, how many people can you say you've known that long? You know, it is, those are the kind of friendships you just cherish. It's always good to see him. So I have not been a good friend. I've been trying, I've been so busy, I forget to, it's been too long since we have talked. But we're good friends, don't hold that against you, you know. Anyway, good to see my buddy. My buddy? It's my buddy. My buddy Ron. I want to just jump through the comments here real quick before we continue. Right, I don't think I'm missing anything here. Carey sure does enjoy his Lazy Susan. I do. You know, the Lazy Susan was sent to me as a customer emailed me and said he was having a problem. I'm not a customer. A viewer emailed me and said, you know, I followed your videos and I built my own computer and I'm having some trouble with it. And normally I just go, hey man, I don't know who you are and I'm really busy and I got a bunch of people paying me that are waiting. And I don't mean to be rude, but there's only one of me, and if you want help right away, go to techguy.org, techgui.org. You can get free support for anything computer related, Linux related, Mac related, hardware, software, I don't know, Tupperware maybe, but it's all covered, it's all volunteer. It's been around for a long, long time. Another one of those websites that is an oddity in that it's free and has been that way for somewhere around 20 years. And the consistency of the support is good, even though it's volunteer and you do get some trolls in there telling you, you know, format your C drive. Most of the time they get swatted out pretty quick, swatted down pretty quick, swatted like a fly, not swatted like, yeah. Anyway, he mentioned that he was, you know, retired and spent a lot of his money, and I had some time and I thought, I'm going to do something I never do. I'm going to call this guy. So I called him, helped him resolve the problem, and to show his appreciation, he mailed me this basically he bought it on Amazon and then just had it shipped to me. And I've been using it ever since, and I really appreciate that. There's a link for it in the video notes below the video. And then I also went on Amazon, I bought this little doorstop, and that's how I can keep it, because I've been struggling sometimes to keep it from spinning. And if you jam it in there, it locks a Lazy Susan in place. And then later on, you know, you've got a doorstop. So win-win. And that's the way I like the community to be. That's the perfect community. I give something to you, and you can say thank you. And then if you want something more from me, give something to me. That gets my attention, and I want to give something back to you. I want to say thank you for giving to me. What can I do for you? But too often on the internet we have people that say, thank you for the inch, now give me a mile. And for those people I'm like, no. It's a difficult position to be in, because people go, well, I thought you were nice. I am nice to people that are nice to me. All right, let me see how we're going to put this in. So this is going to hold our radiator. That's a pretty clever design. Interesting. I'm bumping into that extra 4-pin power cable right up there. That's what you hear, that clicking. Oh, I've moved it now. It's smooth. And how we want to put the radiator in is up to us, I suppose. We can do it a couple of different ways. Let's get the radiator out of the box. Now this is an all-in-one liquid cooling solution. Here's a quick tip video for the future. What is an all-in-one liquid cooler? An all-in-one liquid cooler, such as what I have here in my hands, this is the NZXT Kraken X62, is sealed from the factory with all the liquid in it already. There's no maintenance. All you do is install it, and within about 4 to 6 years, typically the pump inside of here dies and the whole unit has to be replaced. It cannot be repaired. I suppose somebody who's really, really, really good and has a lot of time on their hands could get some duct tape and some glue and maybe fix it and refill it, but you wouldn't want to for a number of reasons. Now, when you use a tower air cooler, you don't have the kind of issues with maintenance that you potentially will eventually run into with a liquid cooler. This looks like a radiator because it is a radiator, just like on your car. And one of these pipes sends hot water up through the radiator. It's actually it's a combination of chemicals. It's not just water. It's a liquid cooler, even though the term water cooler is often used inappropriately. It does have water in it, but so does my Coca-Cola, but that doesn't look like any water I've ever drank. But there is water in it. It's mostly water. In much the same way, there is a fluid in here similar to antifreeze in your car, and it just sends, just like your car, the top of the radiator typically has a big hose on your car, and the bottom of the radiator has a hose, and that's for the water to go in and back out. In to the top, out through the bottom. in gravity, just, you know, it falls through, and that the air goes through these little coils and it cools that liquid down. That's a pretty cool effect, right? By your command. It's a reference for people that are old. And if you want to overclock your CPU, you're going to get a higher overclock with a liquid cooler, because liquid cooling is just, in general, superior to air cooling. Now, a tiny little liquid cooler versus a great big air cooler, that obviously means the air cooler will be better. But of all things being equal, a liquid cooler is superior in cooling your CPU. But if you're not intending on overclocking a CPU, then the expense and the trouble, in my opinion, isn't worth it. There's a video I did with a Cosmos 2 build using the Cosmos 2 case, and 4 years later, the case came back to me. The computer, the whole computer came back. And if you search my YouTube channel for it, you'll see the pump died in the liquid cooler right at the 4-year mark, just as I predicted. Customer didn't know what was wrong. He just felt the top of the computer felt hot. That's where the radiator is. If you touch the top and it feels really, really super hot, chances are your pump is not running. And that's what happened. The pump stopped working. Very easy fix. You take the cooler out and throw it into the trash, or you have to properly recycle it and you buy a new one. That's the society we live in here in America. We throw it away, we buy another one, we get it installed, we move to the next repair. Time is of the essence. The amount of time you could spend attempting to fix this, I could spend fixing 4 more computers. So just set your expectations accordingly. These are expensive, and there's a lot of people on the internet that recommend them, but those people are extremists, or they took advice from extremists. If you are not an extremist, then you don't need this. The problem we're running into with Franklin's computer is I can't seem to get a cooler on here that doesn't interfere with the installation of the RAM or covering up his pretty LEDs. I mean, he paid extra to see the LEDs. So even if we could put a cooler and clear the RAM, he won't see the LEDs. So the way we get around that is with a liquid cooler, which also has LEDs and will make the system even prettier. The downside is it costs more money, and it will probably require replacement within 4 to 6 years. And that is your tutorial on liquid coolers. Or rather, and that is all you need to know about liquid cooling. Except that you could also build your own liquid cooler and buy all the parts separately and make your own, you know, fittings and cut everything to size. Instead of having one generic length of cable, you could put hard tubing and mold it into the right shape. And then you can choose the color of your coolant. Man, people have a lot of time on their hands to mess with stuff like that. And then that coolant, much like a jacuzzi, that type of system you need to evacuate the coolant about once a year and then flush the whole system to get all the bacteria and algae buildup out of it. And then fill it up again with fresh new coolant. And then every time you open it and close it, you risk having a leak. So you can take your leak somewhere else. This is not a place to take a leak. Certainly don't take a leak inside your computer. Highly not recommended. Are we clear? Because that's how you know you're hydrated. Never mind. Kind of, what was that all about? I don't know. So anyway, so that little tray, that's going to hold the radiator in place. This whole tray comes out. I haven't removed it yet because I want to visualize where I want to mount it. Do I want to mount it on this side, or do I want to mount it over here on this side? As you can see, we can put a bigger radiator in there. This is a mid-size. This is a very common size. What is this, 240? Figure half of this is 120 millimeter. The other half is 120. You can get another 120. You can do the math on that. It's 360. Put the calculator down. It's 360. This is a 240. So this tray will hold a radiator up to 360. Now, the question is, how's it going to look, right? We're doing this for aesthetics. We're doing this not only so it cools better, but also so that it looks better. So is it going to look better if I place it here and run those tubes that way? Or does it look better if I run it over here? Well, if I run it over here, I'm too close against those front fans. It makes me uncomfortable. So for safety, I'm going to put it right here. And let's take a look, now that I'm holding that in position, let's take a look at how the screws are going to align with this tray and make sure that we're not going to have any issues with that. Then the other thing that we can consider is where we're going to place the fans. So when I slide this back in after I mount it, do I want the fans on the bottom, pushing air from the system out through the top? Or do I want the fans on top, again, pushing air, sucking air, pulling air in through the radiator from inside of the case? What you don't want to do, in my opinion, you don't want to bring air from the top down. And the reason for that is airflow considerations. We have two fans on the front, and they're going to be drawing air this way in. And then we have a rear case fan that continues that airflow. It's all going this way, right? So now if we're pushing air down here, we're breaking that flow down here, and you end up with a dead spot where air isn't moving right here in the middle. So you want to bring the air up and out. So it's okay, the more air that comes in here, we can push it out through the back or up through the top. In theory, he doesn't even need this rear fan. He's already going to have an exhaust, he's going to have two exhaust fans right here, blowing that air through this radiator and out through the top. Having this rear fan isn't going to hurt anything, but it isn't going to make a difference one iota of a degree. I promise you, you can test this yourself and see for yourself. So what this will do eventually, anytime you have a moving part, those moving parts can fail. Moving parts are likely the first parts to fail. So that means anything with a fan or a spinning mechanical hard drive. These are the parts that are most likely to fail on any computer in general, and we're talking statistics here. So he's increasing his statistical likelihood of having a fan failure by adding or leaving a fan that he doesn't need. On the other hand, that may not happen for a very long time. This pump could die long before the fan would die. It's hard to say, it's hard to predict, but I'm of the school of preventive maintenance, or about being proactive. I want to prevent problems. I want the customer to never experience the problem. And it's a difficult thing to sell to customers because they'll often say, I don't know what I'm paying you for because nothing's breaking. That's why you paid me, so that nothing would break. Other times they go, I don't know what I'm paying you for because everything is breaking. You know, it's a difficult position to be in sometimes. So if you're thinking about getting into the field, prepare yourself for that scenario. That's all I'm saying. All right, let me see about, you know, this is interesting. As I look at how this can mount, it appears I can actually center it if I want to. It does not have to be, because I'm going to put the fans on the bottom. The fans are going to go right onto the bottom of this radiator. Then the radiator can go anywhere on here. If we want to center it, we can certainly center it. If we want to shove it all the way to one side, it's all entirely up to you. Part of the fun part of building a computer, I'm going to just stick with that now because I said it. The fun part, no. One of the fun parts of building a computer is having that self-expression, you know, being able to sort of make it your own. And this is one of those scenarios. I can literally place this in any of these positions. So maybe what I'll do, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put some screws in the top here. I'll put one here and one there, and we'll slide it in and we'll move it back and forth, and we'll see what looks best. And then we'll decide. Just set this right here, like so. Do not use a mechanical screwdriver on your radiator. It's made of a soft metal, and it's very easy to strip the screws. And I don't mean just stripping the screw, but stripping the thread in the radiator, and then you would have to retap it. Not fun, very time consuming and easily avoidable. What do we got in here? These are all big. Where's my little screws at? There they are. Troll McTrollington's contributed $5 Canadian. Hello, Mr. Holzman. I have been donating over YouTube, but I did donate over PayPal because of fees. Well, thank you, Troll McTrollington. Seriously, I appreciate, any way the contributions comes in is great. But yes, using PayPal, they take 3%. Using Super Chat, YouTube takes 30%. But regardless, I appreciate it. So I've got a little tiny screw here, which is what we need, right there, and a little washer. Sometimes when you put these washers on, the screw's not long enough to go through the mounting bracket and still reach the radiator underneath. So if you can use the washers, please do. It helps to prevent the radiator from slipping, especially in my case where I'm shipping the computer. You want to make sure that the radiator is very secure, because if it falls, if it goes down inside of the computer, it will damage the RAM, it'll damage the motherboard. These companies, whether it's FedEx or UPS or whoever, DHL, United States Post Office, they tend to not treat these packages as though they were their own. So prepare for the worst and hope for the best. I'm just going to put, as I mentioned, just putting a screw in opposite corners, and I'm not tightening them down so I can shift the radiator. So I believe the part that sticks out on this radiator is the part that goes towards the back. See if I remember that correctly. See, just about paying attention. One day, I'll learn how to do that. It is important you pay attention to how it comes out so that you're not struggling to get it seated back in there. And I'm just going to pull this right back out again in a minute, so I'll get some good practice. There we go. So now that it's in there, right? See what I'm saying? I can move this over here. I can move it over there right into the middle. I mean, for me personally, I don't want it up against this fan because the fan's rotating and that can over time create a bzzz, a vibration. It's probably not going to do it today. It's probably not going to do it next month. But over time, with these two components rubbing up against each other, this is going to have a little vibration to it as the water liquid flows through it, and then the fan has a little vibration as the fan spins. So ideally, you don't have anything touch your fans for that reason. That's why a lot of fan installs have these little rubber grommets. So I think maybe just a little bit like that. I don't know. What do you guys think? You can tell me in the chat. You tell me right here in the live chat. What do you think of this position versus, say, shoving it towards the front like that? Not a big difference. It's still going to do the same job. And I don't even think the window, does the window on this case show the top? Because none of this lights up. This piece here is going to go right there over the CPU, and that's going to light up. And I just think right by the fan, right like that. What do you guys think? You see, everybody has different tastes, right? Some people like it centered, But what you've got to keep in mind is when we put the panel back on, like let's say we center this, which would be right about, as far as I can move it to the right, is almost dead center. I don't think you're going to see this part through the glass panel. I'd have to get the panel and take a look and see if you're going to see that at all. Because me personally, you notice like everything is pushed, here's what I'm thinking, just so you know. Power supply is over there, it's not in the middle. Motherboard is over there, it's not in the middle. The fan is over there, it's not in the middle. So I kind of feel like that should also be over there because nothing is in the middle. But the other thing to consider is if we put it in the middle, right? Let's say we do that. Now accessing any of these areas for adding, I mean, I imagine that these are there for SSDs. You're gonna have to work around this. If you push this off to the side, now I can get in here much easier in the future, and that makes working on the machine much easier. So for many people, they just think, I'm never gonna open it. What do I care? I want it to look good. And for other people, like myself, you know, it's just a matter of time before you're gonna have to open it for something. If it's not a repair, it'll be an upgrade, you know? And that's another thing to consider, right? Think about tomorrow. Think about next year. Think about access to items that you may be blocking by putting it in a different position like that. And is that important to you or is it not important to you? Food for thought. I think I'm going to keep it to the left. But I am curious. It doesn't mean I'm right. It doesn't mean you're wrong. I'm just genuinely curious. I should test how the hoses will fit. The hoses are going to fit. I mean, we're only moving it a couple inches, so the hoses really aren't going to be a problem either way. I don't want to mount it with the hoses on the other side because then you potentially conflict with the fan, and because you've got the LEDs both on the water pump and on the RAM. You're going to, so the focus of the eye, when you look at this computer through the glass panel that'll be here, is going to be focused on this area where all the lights are. Graphics card's going to be lit up right here. Remember, we've got a graphics card. Those hoses are going to either sit on top of the graphics card, and then in doing so, they're going to be in the eye line of the LEDs for the CPU and for the RAM. So if we're talking about what looks best, what am I, Italian? If we're talking about what looks best, you've got to get those hoses out of the way. Do you understand? Yeah, I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm just asking if you understand what my motivation is and why the hoses always go to the right. I never put the hoses on the left. Never, never. Again, graphics card, big graphics card is going to be right here. And those hoses are going to have to sit on top of it, and the graphics card gets hot. That heat's going to go right through that hose, and it's going to make your liquid hotter. It doesn't look very good either. Keep it over here, keep it away, keep it out of the visual, direction that people will be drawn their eye towards those LEDs, both here and on the graphics card. Bevico has contributed £2. He says, what's the difference between 24 or PC or 40? What's the difference between 24 and 44 PCI Express lanes? What's the difference between 22 or 44 lanes on a freeway? If you're in the middle of nowhere and nobody, you only have a handful of cars driving up and down the road, you probably don't need to add more lanes to accommodate more traffic. PCI Express lanes are really the same in concept as lanes for traffic. If you don't have a lot of traffic, you don't need more lanes. If you do have a lot of traffic, if you've got, a bunch of NVMe drives and a bunch of add-on cards and quad channel memory, in order to have all of that boosted to its full potential, each thing needs its own lane. So most people don't need 44 lanes, and it's very expensive, and it's a bit finicky. Did I just make another quick tips video? Thank you for the question. Won't it sit on the GPU one way or the other? No, absolutely not. The GPU is not that long. When I put the GPU in, the GPU won't go further. You see where these wiring holes are? The GPU won't go further than those wiring holes. Excuse me, guys, just one moment. I'll be right back. I'll let you talk amongst yourselves. And Ben Fitzpatrick has given me, contributed to, not to me, to the channel, $2. He says, greetings from Louisville, Kentucky, home of the Cardinal, and Kentucky Fried Chicken, and bourbon. All right, I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. I just had a tire issue I had to deal with, and I wanted to find out what happened. We've got 780 people watching right now. Welcome in, everybody. Thanks for joining me today, and hope you're enjoying and being entertained and being educated at the same time. That's what I try and do. Some shows are better than others. Everything is live. Everything is real. Nothing is scripted. And if you don't like it, you can get your money back. It's a guarantee. So where are we on this? Is everybody on board with where we're putting the radiator? Netterman said, this community is the best. Well, it's folks like you, Netterman, that make the community the best. Thank you for being a part of it. Chuck says he would have mounted the radiator in the front of the case as an intake and remove the front fans and move the front fans to the top. Well, again, and tests will prove this, Chuck. If you actually test that yourself, you'll see that if you have an exhaust fan, whether that is pointing out the back or pointing out the top, that is going to be your cooling, and adding more fans won't cool it anymore. So if you're gonna go with top-mounted fans, you don't need the rear, and if you're gonna go with a rear-mounted fan, you don't need the top, if we're talking about exhaust. With regards to front fans, you really don't even need front fans because nature, it creates a vacuum. And so as long as you've got air being exhausted out the back of the case, the vacuum that it creates will automatically draw air in from the front. It'll just pull it right in. But if you wanna sort of turbo that, if you wanna boost that and make more air blow over, which is ideal for a graphics card if you've got a discrete graphics card, or let's say you had a stack of mechanical hard drives. Like, you notice how the hard drive cage down here is down by this lower fan. That lower fan is intended to cool the hard drive cage and additional graphics cards installed if you want multiple GPUs. The upper fan is just for the graphics card. So if you don't have a discrete graphics card, you don't even need the front fan. Now there's a talk of negative air pressure versus positive air pressure and how much dust is mitigated or controlled using one or the other. But it doesn't negate the need for blowing the dust out of the computer in either case. So whether or not you've got positive or negative air pressure doesn't mean I don't have to occasionally pull the panel off and blow the dust out of the computer. Here in Arizona, we have a big problem with dust, and I can assure you, it really makes almost no difference whatsoever, positive or negative air pressure. It's a silly thing that people have grabbed onto, and I don't know why, but that's based on me living in Phoenix. No matter if you have positive or negative air pressure, you're going to have dust build up in Phoenix to the point that you should be, at the very minimum, blowing the dust out once a year. And that's regardless of positive or negative air pressure. You're still going to want to blow that dust out once a year. That dust is like wearing a jacket. Over time, when it builds up, imagine you're wearing a jacket in the wintertime to keep you warm. Now imagine you're wearing the same jacket in the summertime. You could overheat. You could have heat stroke. Dust, when it collects, it becomes an insulator, and then things can't cool as well. Just as a jacket is an insulator, it insulates you like a thermos. Maybe I need to make a thermos out of dust. It doesn't sound tasty though. But it's fat-free, so I don't think it's vegan. Oh, this just got disgusting. I don't want to know what dust is made of, but I'm pretty sure it's not vegan. How did I get on this topic? What happened to my Coca-Cola? This always happens to me. I start to drink it, and then it like evaporates somehow. Chuck says, air pressure wasn't my thought. It was just the radiator positioning, and moving the existing fans was just something to do with them. Ah, yes, this is another attitude that I want to talk about. And that is, sometimes I run into customers, and they just want to fill every slot. They want to use every part. And this is somebody I don't want to support. These people that think like this don't understand the consequences. I've already explained the more fans you have, the more likely you're going to have a problem, because fans are a moving part and they fail. And the more fans you have, the more potential failure you can experience each one. If you have 4 fans, then you have 4 fans that can fail. If you have 1 fan, you only have 1 fan that can fail. Same is true of hard drives. If you have 10 hard drives, you've just multiplied by 10 your chances of experiencing a hard drive failure. Now, this is a philosophy, and it's a philosophy I use to run my business and to guide my customers, but I never tell my customers what to do. I just help to guide them based on my experience. I've been doing this professionally for nearly 30 years. And it's funny how some people will just dismiss that. And it's fine with me. You're welcome to dismiss 30 years, nearly 30 years of professional experience. It's not really, it doesn't have any impact on my life. But I will tell you that the most common repairs I get are fans. That's just, it's easy, it's cheap, and it's common. So I want to use as few fans as possible. In fact, speaking of that, Silverstone sent me a power supply that I can't wait to use it. You see, Silverstone is on top of this because if the fan dies in your power supply, it's not user serviceable. It's a very high voltage area that, unless you really know what you're doing, you shouldn't be in there. Silverstone has come out with this monster right here. This is the Nightjar. It's a 600 watt power supply that's fully modular that has no fan. No fan. And it's 80 plus titanium, which is one of the highest, I think it is the highest efficiency rating available. This is not cheap. I think this is about $200. And Silverstone is patiently waiting for me to review it, and I will get to it, and I'm looking forward to it. But it is possible to build a machine with no fans and have no heat issues. It is very, very possible. It's not going to be a rocket ship. In other words, you're not going to be breaking any speed records with it, but it could be completely dead silent and be very, very reliable because you're not going to have any fans fail on you. Or at least you'll have one less. And that's what that looks like. We'll just set this over here for now because I don't want to run back there. Just put it right there. Put it right there. Okay. So yes, could we put the radiator up in the front? Well, again, if we put the radiator here, then we are potentially blocking access to adding things that can go right here. Remember, it's not just about today. We got to think about what's the potential for tomorrow, next month, next year, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. I hate the idea of installing one part that interferes with the ability to install another part. It's like you're making a trade-off. So if all things are equal, and if the radiator works equally well here as it does here, putting it up here doesn't block access to anything. But putting it here does block access to these ports. It's the same reason I don't want to flip the radiator around and have the hose come down this side. This is the kind of thinking that I want to teach you how to do. This is what I'm trying to accomplish here. So I want you to picture this in your head, and I want you to picture not just about today. It's almost like playing checkers versus chess. In chess, you have to anticipate your opponent's move or moves well ahead if you want to win the game. To win the game, you've got to anticipate. He's going to do this, I'm going to do that. He's going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then you make your move. If you're a good chess player, you can ask any good chess player about that logic, and they will say, yeah, of course, that's how you play chess. I am suggesting you apply that same logic to how you live your life. Think about the consequences. Stop thinking about today. Start thinking about tomorrow, next week. Is it a big deal to have to move the radiator? Of course, it's not a big deal. If you suddenly decide, hey, I want to use these and this is blocking it, now what is a 5-minute job just became an hour job as you have to move it. It's not the end of the world, but when you're in business where time is money, it's hard to make that business sustainable. Lotto Win says, holy moly, look at the size of that box. Is there a car in there? Ron, my friend, says, my last Silverstone power supply lasted about a year. Well, I promise you, the Silverstone power supplies have a longer than a year warranty, so you could have sent it back. No manufacturer makes 100% parts that never fail. The question isn't about how reliable the manufacturer's parts are. The question is, when there's a problem, how does the manufacturer respond? Do they make it easy? Do they make it painless? Are they easy to get a hold of? Is the process seamless? Or do they make excuses? Are they hard to get a hold of? Are they hard to understand on the phone? You know, are they outsourced to another country where it's frustrating to comprehend what's being said? And furthermore, do they make you wait forever before they send you an RMA, or do they make it difficult for an RMA? There is no company that I'm aware of in the computer industry that manufactures a product where everybody who's ever received it has never had to return it for any reason. And there's lots of reasons why this happened. Sometimes it happens because in the shipping process, you might have somebody drop kick the box to your front door. I'd like to see them try that with that power supply. They'll have a broken toe. But the warranty on this, I'm just curious what the warranty, this is an NJ600, 24/7 continuous power output with a 40 degrees centigrade operating temperature, class leading single plus 12 volt rail. It's got PCIe 8-pin and PCIe 8-pin. Does it just say that twice? Support. What is our warranty? Specifications. I don't see the warranty. Sometimes you know, the warranties vary, there's the connectors, based on what country that they're selling the power supply in, and that's why they often don't print it on the box. I'm sure you guys can look it up, but it's no big deal. It doesn't matter. You could buy the quote-unquote best-made power supply in the world, according to the internet, and then have it fail. It doesn't mean that what everybody said is wrong. You know, that happens. So don't interpret what I'm telling you as that's the only power supply without a fan. I never said that. Don't say that because you had one fail that somehow implies that people should be warned for that specific brand. In order for a company to be sustainable, you simply can't have all of these warranty returns. There used to be a motherboard manufacturer called ABIT, A-B-I-T. And in the early 2000s, 2005, 2003, I experienced a lot of leaking capacitors on boards, and I was the journalist who brought it forward to the public's attention, which resulted in some lawsuits, some class action lawsuits against Dell, against all these other motherboard manufacturers. I don't even think some of them are around anymore, like Jetway. Do they even make boards anymore? ABIT. So what happened was ABIT was affected. The reason I'm trying to give you so much information, I need to slow down. The reason I wrote the article about it is the motherboard manufacturers that I contacted concerning warranty said, it's not our fault. You did something wrong. It's your power supply. It's causing your capacitors to overheat and leak. It's not on us. They denied any accountability. And I was upset. And so I wrote an article that got published. And as a result of that, some folks that are electrical engineers, they had known that bad capacitors were in the marketplace, but they didn't have any evidence of it. I had evidence of bad capacitors, but I didn't know why, and the motherboard manufacturers, all of them were denying any accountability. Well, when they read my article and I read their article, here's the story of a man named Carey. We became fast friends, and lawsuits then, to use a turn of phrase, ensued. And as a result of that, one of the first companies that was sued was ABIT. And the reason why ABIT was gone after first in the class action litigation was because they released a statement to their shareholders about their quarterly projections and said, due to bad capacitors on motherboards and the warranty replacement costs, we're not expecting to, achieve our quarterly results as previously projected. So they basically publicly acknowledged that they're aware of the problem and it's going to cost them money. So that's a slam dunk lawsuit right there. The tech support company, the people that work for tech support said, we don't know anything about it, it must be you. And then there's a shareholder conference regarding the earnings summary for the quarter, explaining why they're not going to be delivering their dividends as projected because of this problem with leaking capacitors and what it's costing them to do all these RMAs. So clearly they were doing some RMAs, even though tech support said they weren't. I don't know how that works. Every single motherboard manufacturer that went to court settled out of court. They settled it. They said, we're going to write you a check, we're going to claim we had no wrongdoing, and this is all going to go away. And every single one of them did that. And I think it was, I don't know for sure, but ABIT filed for bankruptcy soon thereafter. And maybe that's why. So in order to have a sustainable company, regardless of what business that you're in, you've got to be able to stand behind your product. And if you just manufacture junk, you're just not going to survive. It's just been proven time and time again. It's not a sustainable business model. You can survive for a little bit of time. Even shady business practices, the things Packard Bell was accused of doing in the United States, is why Packard Bell is not in the United States anymore. Those are interesting histories in the manufacturing of computers that you might want to just Google if it's of interest to you. It's right there at your keyboard to Google it, and you can read all about it from numerous reputable sources. Bill Otherthan says, Carey, I just got my Acronis Trimage 2019. There was already a 40% off discount. So after using the backup with Carey coupon code, it was just £17.49. Could you even eat dinner for £17.49? That's a great price. I'm glad you took advantage of that, Bill. I'm sure you're not going to regret it. Dylan Erkmisgill says, love from Scotland, Carey. You're good. I thrive on your knowledge. Flattery will get you everywhere. Thank you. It's so nice to get compliments after getting used to being attacked for such a long time. You're like, no, I'm just trying to shake your hand. Oh, I thought you were punching me. He's got that twitch. No, it's a flinch. This stream has 750 fans. That's clever. Just because they're watching doesn't mean they're a fan. We can hope. What about Girl Scout cookies? I never had to return those. Oh, don't get me started. We saw a girl selling Girl Scout cookies. So now, see what you just did? I should be working on this, and instead I'm going to tell you a Girl Scout cookie story. My wife and I just recently bought Girl Scout cookies. I haven't had them in years, and there was a girl with her mother with a little stand out in front of the grocery store. And I said, give me a box of the Thin Mints, give me a box of the Tagalongs, give me a box of the Samoas, give me a box of those butter cookies. They're all disgusting except for the Thin Mints. As far as I'm concerned, they're not as good as they used to be. I'm not going to return them because I've opened them and I've eaten them, but I won't buy them again. The only cookie that was good and remains good and has always been good, in my wife and I's opinion, we both have come to the same conclusion, the Thin Mints. Instead of buying one box of 4 different kinds, we should have bought 4 boxes of the Thin Mints. The butter cookies taste like cake batter. If they labeled those as cake batter, what are those cookies called? I still have them. All right, let's see. Trefoils. These are disgusting. They taste like cake batter. I thought they were going to be like shortbread. Very buttery. They're not buttery. Tastes like yellow cake batter. Then there's the Samoas. I don't eat coconut. That's for my wife. And then there's these Tagalongs. And these used to be my favorite, but they've changed. They're bland. I don't really care for them anymore. I'd show you the Thin Mints box, but those are gone. So what does that tell you? But I'm glad you haven't had to take any back. And I wouldn't, it's a good cause. I would rather buy a bad cookie from the Girl Scouts than a good cookie from the Kroger-based grocery store any day of the week. My buddy Ron says, I miss Savannah's, the peanut butter cookies. Isn't that what the Tagalongs are? Aren't these the peanut butter cookies? They just renamed them. It's peanut butter and then the cookie and it's dipped in chocolate. But they don't taste like they used to taste. They're very bland. Very bland. Next time, it's going to be boxes of Thin Mints and just the Thin Mints. And you put those Thin Mints in the freezer and they don't get hard at all. They're just cold. And I need to buy more Thin Mints. All right, get me started on Girl Scout cookies. See what you did? If you want to blame somebody. Ron says, no, those aren't the same. Yeah, what do I know? Ron says they were sandwich cookies. Oh, like Nutter Butters? Now, Nutter Butters, that's my go-to right there. If I have Nutter Butters, forget about it. Forget about it. I got to ration them. Gary says, just donate and don't take the cookies. I'm sure that's the healthier choice in every way you look at that. But if you want to give away the coconut cookies, I'll take them. They're my wife's cookies. And if I give them away, I don't think she'll be too happy about it. But, the Thin Mints we are agreeing on. The Thin Mints are amazing. They're not too minty like a lot of other Like you can go to the store and buy Keebler. They're just very strong mint. These are minty, but they're not like overpowering, like somebody put an Altoid in it or something. Merrick buys Thin Mints from school. They have a cookie dealer. Oh, well, me and Elle are going to have to talk. Ron says, I used to like Soyo Dragon Board. Oh, Soyo, I forgot about them. If they worked, they were fast, and about 40% did not work. I never finished my story. I said I don't take on interns. So Ron, I took him under my wing. We're going to say that because Ron's much bigger than me, so it's funny to just say I was taking him under my wing. And I remember I asked Ron, I had sort of all the work caught up and I wanted him to do something, and so I poured out this big barrel of screws, not a barrel, but like a big container like this, filled with screws. And I said, I want these screws separated. I want one pile over here for the fan screws. I want one pile over here for the coarse threaded screws. And I want one pile over here for the fine threaded screws, because I want to separate them, and when I want to screw, I don't want to dig through and find it. Once they're separated out, I'll have one container for each type, and I just go right to the container, reach in and grab it. I wish I could show you the expression on his face when I asked him to do that. It was kind of like this. I'm going to try my best. It was sort of like, really? You're kidding me right now, right? Nope. Chop, chop. But anyway, Ron did a great job. Ron went on to work at a cyber cafe sort of type. I don't know if it was a cafe, like a place where you could pay to game. What's the word for that? And so they were building machines and repairing machines, having to reset machines at the end of the day from the things people did to them. Ron moved away, so all that time I invested went away. But more importantly, he's a very, very good friend and remains so to this day. Troll says, you're a sadist. I mean, I just want to be able to be fast. I need a screw, grab it and go. I don't want to be digging for 20 minutes trying to find a darn screw. And I was sick of it, and I had a helper. I'm like, help me with this. I shouldn't have let it get that bad. I should have segregated those screws much, much earlier. But as it built up, it was only going to get worse. So let's deal with it now. Harry Baldwin's contributed $1.99. He says, do you remember the bad capacitors on the Soltec motherboards? I don't recall working on any motherboards made by a company called Soltec. That's not a name I'm familiar with. That doesn't mean I didn't. I just have no recollection of that brand. Ron says, my little bro. Yeah, sure. God, I wish I had a picture of his face. I'll never forget it. The look on his face. Because I was just expecting him to go, okay. He was so like everything that we had been doing. He was like, okay, 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 And then it was like the whole energy of the room changed. Jonathan says, damn it, Carrie, last time it was crisps and now it's biscuits. You're gonna get me fat. Take a number. Kroger's are in Arizona? Kroger is under Arizona under a different name. They're under the name of Fry's, and they're under the name, I believe, of what else? Then there's Safeway and Albertsons, and they might be part of Kroger too. I'm not quite, maybe it's not. There's several big names here in Arizona that are owned by Kroger, but don't use the Kroger name. If I was Ron, I would have bought the sorted computer screws on eBay. There was no eBay back then. We're going way, way back, folks, or at least to the point where you would have been on dial-up if you had to get on eBay. I'll put it to you that way. And so a lot of people, when you were looking for something on eBay, there wasn't the selection today because there were fewer people who used it. Finding computer screws was not easy. And I had to ride a bicycle uphill both ways with my little brother on my back in the snow. But no, seriously, it was very difficult to find computer screws back in the day. You sort of, if you had any left over, you kept them, and that's why. All right, let me get back to work. All right, I think right there is where I want it, so I just want to try and hold that position right there, and I'm going to tighten one of the screws down before it shifts on me. And I know my back is to you. I'm going to do my best to stay out of the way of the camera. Just be patient with me for a minute, if you would, please. And then we just take this back over here, and we're going to put screws, when I say we, I mean me, in all of those mounting points. There's 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom. Does it need 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom? I don't think so. But we've got the screws, and the manufacturer recommends that we install it in this way. And that's all the reason I need. Oh, got a runner. And they give us exactly the amount we need. Let's come over here and let's secure the radiator in that position now. I'm just putting a little washer on each end here. Just as a reminder, you definitely do not want to use a electric screwdriver on your radiator or on your CPU mounting of any sort of water block or cooler. I have busted off the screws live on video in my impatience using this driver. And in both occasions, I didn't just do it once, I did it twice. Corsair sent me replacement screws at no charge, even though it was entirely my fault. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how wonderful a company is. I'm just being honest with you. Corsair has done some stuff I don't like as well. But with regards to handling any warranty claims, with whether it's Corsair RAM, whether it's about getting front panel switches and connectors for a case that for one reason or another doesn't work, they have always been very good to me. And I don't contact Corsair and say, do you know who I am? That's not cool, man. And furthermore, it's not accurate because I'm nobody. Secondly, I'm not looking for any favors. I want to know what you guys should expect to experience. So I just want to be like everybody else. Forget that I'm on YouTube. Forget that I'm going to share the story with thousands of people. I don't do that. I just go, this is my name. This is what I need. And then I share with you that experience so that I can tell you why I recommend or don't recommend buying products from a company. And it's because their RMA response is so easy and so responsive, and they've covered things they didn't have to cover, that I will continue to recommend Corsair flash drives, Corsair cases, Corsair RAM. I will not, and Corsair coolers. I will not recommend Corsair keyboards because their support sucks. The minute you need support for your keyboard when it's out of warranty, their answer is throw it into the garbage. You spend $200 on a keyboard, I'll pay 50 bucks to fix it. No, paying to fix it is not an option. Good to know, I won't buy your keyboards anymore. Or if I buy a Corsair keyboard, I won't spend $200. I'll spend $50, and then when it's out of warranty, then I'll throw it away. Throwing away a $200 keyboard, I don't have that kind of money. And then to have the company go, too bad, so sad. Like, look, you know, I'll pay to fix it. I'm not saying fix it for free. They're like, no, we don't offer that. It's not an option. Well, I wish you would have disclosed that when I bought it before I dropped $200. So like I said, I'm not going to sit here and praise. When I praise a company, I'm not saying anything other than what I'm saying. So listen to what I'm saying and don't try and read between the lines. I'm very direct. I mean what I say and I say what I mean. I think. How about that? Beautiful, beautiful. So now I can put these screws back in. Now this goes into the bracket that holds the radiator, so we're okay to use the electric screwdriver here. I have a torque setting on this driver, which is set, I always set it to 3. This dial turns. And this is an auto off clutch, and that means when the screwdriver hits that torque setting, it just shuts off. It doesn't make that terrible sound, which is also not good on the clutch. So those are the 3 screws back in. Let's flip it around. And now I have to put the 2 black screws right back up in here. Oh, what am I doing? I have to pull this back out because now that I have it mounted, I've got to put the 2 fans on the bottom, and that's going to be hard to do with this in position. This is what happens when you get in a hurry. You start making stupid mistakes like that. Not major mistakes, it's not hurting anything. It's just adding a little more work unnecessarily. You don't have to work so hard, Carrie. Stay. There we go. My bad. All right, so yeah, so I was test fitting that, it looks good. Now we can put our fans on. So the fans need to go, oh, wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. Might have a new problem. We could have a new problem here. I would very much prefer the fans be on top because there's no position for this radiator where the fan won't hit the RAM. Let me show you. I just now noticed that. Oh, wait a minute. It's off by like 2 millimeters. This is a downside of buying this RGB RAM. You see how tall this RAM is? This is a good 1/3 taller than it should be if it didn't have the RGB lights on it, at least not this design. This RAM is also by Corsair, as you can see. So the RAM has bitten us twice now. Why did he buy that RAM? Because he wanted the lights. Because he wanted the lights, all of this trouble has started. Oh, that just sucks. It is so, so close. When this fan sits in here, it's going to be mounted right about there. Yep. There's about 2 or 3 millimeters, maybe 4 millimeters, where it intersects with the RAM. But we do have all this room on top, so we could put the fans on top, but the problem is the way that the Phanteks has designed this, I'll never be able to pull this out. What I'll have to do is take the top off, install the fans, and if anybody has to work on this, they're going to have a heck of a time getting that out, because they will have to know this has to come off, then the fans have to come off, and then these screws have to come off, and then this pulls out. And this is designed to be easy, and that makes it much more complicated. So guess what that means, ladies and gentlemen? That means we can't go any further today. I'm now at a stopping point that requires me to speak with the owner of the computer. I don't know how to proceed right now. Whether I shift this to the right or to the left, I'm still going to intersect here. If I put the radiator here up in the front, then I block everything here, which obviously people go, well, what's the problem with that? It will be a problem, probably, in the future. Think about this. Think about this. This plate can come off. There's a plate right here, right down here, and we can run the radiator down here, but it means we have to shift the hard drive cage over this way to make room for it. Ideally, we would just put different RAM in there. He should not, there's 3 mistakes Franklin made. Franklin did not follow the advice of Catherine. That's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, Franklin bought 4 sticks of RAM. He should have only bought 2. He's actually slowing his machine down because this is only a dual channel memory chipset. It is not a quad channel. And in doing so, he's added latency to the machine. So the way Franklin did this is typically not the way I accept orders. When somebody wants me to build a computer and they say, I've already bought my parts, will you build it? I got to see the parts, because this is what happens. I trust Catherine to put a good parts list together for me, and she did. I trust the person to do as they were advised, and he didn't. And now who's the one who pays the price? It's different when you're building your own computer. It's different when you're the one who's inconvenienced. Now, I have to figure this out. Franklin is going to have to wait longer now because of it. And this whole thing could have been done last week. And we just keep hitting one obstacle after another, and it was totally avoidable. All because he wanted some pretty lights. And instead of going with 2 sticks of RAM, he went with 4, so he'd have more lights, even though it slows the computer down. And it costs more money, and it restricts the ability to cool the machine. So that's today's lesson. We all make mistakes. Franklin's not a bad guy. It's just unfortunate that his actions are costing me. But I agreed to take on the work, and I'm a problem solver, and I will fix it. But I have so much work to do. All of these delays are causing everybody behind him to have to wait. Normally, when a customer wants to order a machine from me, I go over the list with the customer. Even if they have a list from Catherine, I still look at it, make sure it's okay, so I know what to expect. Franklin was mailing me parts over the last 2 or 3 months. He was buying stuff as he had money. I normally don't let people do that. I made an exception for Franklin. I don't think I'll be making that exception anymore because I'm sure Franklin's not happy. I'm not happy. Catherine's not happy. And the viewers, you guys are going to have to wait for part 4 now to see how we finish this up. Can I use a smaller fan? No. If I put it in the front, it's still not, it's not up to my standard. Moving this over here to the front creates even more work, right? Because now, where these fans have to come out. The radiator goes in here, and I want to drop the radiator down as far as possible, which means I then have to move the hard drive cage. And then these fans will be left over, they'll be extra. We'll use these fans instead. Well, it really doesn't matter. We can use either fan, except we want these fans controlled by the Kraken software. We don't want the fans controlled by the fan controller on the back of the board because that fan controller makes all the fans spin at the same speed. So if the fan controller says spin at 600 RPM, they all spin at 600 RPM. We want to take advantage of today's technology that enables only the fans that are affected by heat to spin up faster, and it keeps the machine quieter. It's less wear and tear on the fans. And these built-in fan controllers like this here on the back, these are not intelligent controllers. They're not independent. Whatever one fan does, they all do. That's what we used to do in the 90s. There's no reason to be using that today. And it just adds a lot more work. Like if somebody would have said to me, will you do all this work for free? I'd say, no, I'm not gonna do all that work for free. If you build a regular system like a regular person has, then I can build it quickly and I can make a great video out of it, and then I can move on to the next customer. When you want to do something like this, you do it yourself. I don't want to get involved in it, and this is exactly why I don't want to get involved in it. So, look, nobody's a bad guy. Nobody did it on purpose. It's a mistake, I get it. But too many mistakes like this, too many customers wait, they take their business somewhere else. It has a negative impact. I'm one guy. I do everything all by myself. With the exception of some help I get from my sister in editing, I have to do even that. So anything that causes this kind of a constant backing up, I got to keep backing up and backing up, affects my ability to move forward. And that ability to move forward, there's only so long, because it's a small company, how long can a small company sustain limbo? You're not necessarily costing me money, but I'm not bringing in any money. So I'm stuck until it's resolved. So I am not happy. The easiest solution is to replace the RAM. That's the easiest solution, is to get on the phone with or get online and order 2 sticks of 16 gigs of RAM each instead of 4 sticks of 8. Forget the RGB lighting and stick with what Catherine recommended. And I'm sure that this would have been all done. It would have been done last week. We wouldn't even have had to have gone to the liquid cooler. Franklin says to top mount the fans. Okay, you do understand how much work that involves, right? You understand now how much additional labor I have to put into this. And on top of that, how much additional labor somebody's gonna have to put in just to getting those fans replaced. Remember what I said about fans. They'll be one of the first things that breaks. So I'm not gonna tell Franklin what to do, but I think Franklin needs to be very aware that what he's setting himself up for in the future is a nightmare. It'll work great for a while. But something that should be as easy as pulling a couple of screws and sliding the whole radiator out now has become a big entanglement that may very well be shipped back to me when that happens. It's quite possible a few years from now, 2-3 years from now, this thing shows back up on my counter again. I cannot recommend it. I cannot condone that. Just because we can do it, the best thing we can do is replace that memory. That's my recommendation, and Franklin and I will have to talk about consequences of whatever he wants to do here. But I'm not a happy guy. I wouldn't say it's all Franklin's fault. Look, it doesn't really matter whose fault it is. It doesn't achieve, we're not accomplishing or getting any closer to a solution, spending time pointing fingers, right? But there's a very important lesson that's to be learned from this. If everybody thinks it's so easy to just slap together any parts, then you build it, right? When you're asking somebody to help you and then you dismiss the advice they give you, then you shouldn't be asking them to build it for you. If you know better than they do, then you're the one who should be building it. But there's a very valuable lesson in that you just can't get the willy-nilly pick and roll the dice and hope it works and then throw that responsibility onto somebody else to deal with the consequences. Whether it's and I know it's not intentional, but the end result, intentional or not, is still the same. It's still the same end result, regardless of why. That's what we have to take from this. That's what I hope you take from it. Are the heat sinks removable on the RAM? Usually the heat sinks are glued to the chips. I have seen the heat sinks come off and take the chips off because the chips are now surface mounted onto the board. And I have literally seen here on video, I've demonstrated it, where the heat sink comes off and rips the entire, the chips stay stuck to the heatsink. There's no screws that I can see. I'll tell you who would be good at this, Mirko Mods. I bet you he could tell me if this could come apart to be painted because he's really good at that. But if I could get this whole area that's white, right here, if I could get that down to right where the word Corsair is, to that height or lower, then this will fit no problem. I mean, that's how close we are. What about the Kraken X52? I don't have a Kraken X52 to use. And remember, this is a 9700K, and keeping it cool may even be a challenge for an X52. I don't know, but it could be. And at very least, the fans are going to run more so, creating more noise. The only reason we went with the X62, Franklin said he's out of money. Franklin says he doesn't have any more money. He's out. Even for the solid state drive, he says, I'll pay for it later. I said, okay, I'm sure he's good for it. But then he spent money on RGB RAM. Like, that's something people with money do. People that don't have money shouldn't be, you know where I'm going with that. The heat issue was purely bad luck. The heat issue really wasn't an issue at all. The heat issue turned out to be the Prime 95 test itself, and I made a video about that. Prime 95 changed the default values and how the testing is done, and it was putting an unrealistic workload on the CPU that doesn't in any way, shape, or form affect real-world stats. And Intel has a whole article on how Intel tests their CPUs and has talked about this in depth. If you really want to get into the technical information, it's available to you. But my audience, I'm not making videos for technical people. I'm making videos for ordinary folks that you have computers, you know, the vast majority of people. But it turned out there was never a heat issue. That was purely a change in Prime 95. So that was an education for me. I didn't know that Prime 95 did that. Now that I know, I'll only use Prime 95 26.6 from now on. I won't use anything newer than 26.6. And if you want to learn more about that, the couple videos I posted last week cover this in great detail. So that's where I'm at with that. So the fans can't be mounted on the bottom because they would hit the RAM, and the fans can't be mounted on top because that should be pretty obvious why they can't be mounted on top. There's no real, that would be a really thin fan unless you mount this all and get it all hooked up and then take the entire top off. Remember, the top has these cables. See how the cables run through here? So you even have to uncable cables to get that top off. It's not supposed to come off. It's not like Phanteks made this with that intention. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Just put in 2 sticks of RAM. Well, the only way 2 sticks of RAM help him is with the original Dark Rock 4 cooler. So with the original Dark Rock 4, which I still have and I can put back in, and 2 sticks of RAM, then we don't use the liquid cooler at all. We stick with the parts Catherine recommended, and then he only has 2 RAM modules, and he blocks access with the Dark Rock 4 to ever put another memory module in it ever again. So he'll always be limited forever to 2 sticks of RAM unless he removes the cooler. So this is not the way I build computers. I don't accept these voluntary limitations that are completely unnecessary. And not only does that restrict any RAM upgrade in the future, but it also cuts him down from 16 gigs of RAM to 16 gigs of RAM, and that's pretty significant. Some people may not notice it. I don't know how Franklin's going to use the computer. I can only assume that he has a need for 32. Most people only need 16. Most people don't even need 16. 16 is typically more than what the average user needs. So 32, even more so. And again, the quad channel RAM is going to be, this is not a quad channel motherboard. So it was a waste of money, all for lights. They proprietarized the lights over the components, over the form over function, Ron says, mounting the fans to the case separate from the radiator leaves a gap which makes the front fans less efficient. The fans will need to pull air. Oh yeah, very much so. The fans have to be mounted on the radiator directly, for sure, because you're right, the air will come in from the top in the gaps and it won't be as effective, and that radiator's not going to work as effectively, and those fans are going to spin up loud all the time. So that's not a good solution. Yes, I can front mount the front, but it will also block any access to adding anything here. I don't know why I'm not being heard. There's no reason you should have to sacrifice if you do it right. You should be able to have all of these ports available to you. You should have access to all of your RAM, and you should be able to upgrade and change things in and out without having to disassemble and remove other components. If I want to add RAM with a Scythe Mugen 5, I don't have to remove the cooler. If I want to add drives in this area here, I don't have to remove the radiator because there won't be one. Let's say if I went with the Scythe Mugen 5, there's no interference with the RAM, there's no heat issue, there's no noise issue, there's no mounting issue, there's no issue of a pump dying in 4 to 6 years. All of that goes away. What I'm trying to convey, and some of you aren't getting it, this isn't about getting it built today. This is about how do you build it today so that anytime you want to repair it or replace or upgrade anything inside of it, you can do so efficiently and quickly with whatever it is you're replacing. So if I want to replace the graphics card, I don't have to remove a whole bunch of stuff to get to the graphics card. Or if I want to remove the power supply, I don't have to remove a whole, it's just 4 screws, power supply comes out. If I want to add a solid state drive into these bays here, I just reach in and I put it in. The minute you start putting obstacles in your way, it takes more time. The more time it takes, the less money you make. Now, when you're a hobbyist and you're not charging people for your time and you have all the time in the world and nothing else to do with it, that's an entirely different perspective than somebody who's running a business. And then when the customer gets upset, hey man, this thing you built for me is junk, I can't do anything with it. It's like, that's the way you built it and it can never be changed. And those are the parts you picked. That's why I have to be a part of it, because now that it's this far along, I'm stuck. It affects me, it affects my business. This is not just about, I got nothing else better to do. I got 6 more systems waiting behind this one. And they're gonna have to continue to wait now. Yes, it's a mistake. I'm not saying anybody did this with intention, but I'm also saying, and I'm trying to emphasize, mistakes are something we learn from. Mistakes are something that help us grow. They're to be embraced and they're to be shared so other people can make different mistakes. You don't have to make this mistake. You can see firsthand what the problems are. I mean, when you're a hobbyist and you're doing it yourself, if you want to spend all this time and effort to force something to work and accept the sacrifices that other people don't sacrifice with regards to limitations to what you can upgrade and how you can upgrade it because of their part selection, because the looks matter to you more than the function, that's entirely fine. That's fine. But it's not fine for me. I never signed up for that. So yes, if we put a Mugen 5, so Franklin says put the Mugen 5. I don't have a Mugen 5 to put in, Franklin. I don't have it. There's nothing to put in. So at some point, see, Franklin's all over the place. Franklin says do this, now Franklin says do that. The only solution I have at this time right now is to order something. It's either to order a new RAM, it's to order a new cooler, or it's to order a new case. I don't have any answers, but I can tell you it's not going to happen today, and it's not going to happen tomorrow because those parts take time to arrive, whatever he wants to do. So Franklin, let's talk privately so we don't have all of this distraction, and we'll get this thing sorted out. Don't feel bad, Franklin. Don't feel bad. It's not my intention to, and I'm sorry if anything I said made you feel bad. It's not my intent. I'm frustrated, and I'm sure you're frustrated too, because you're looking forward to having this and using it, and I'm looking forward to getting it to you, and I'm getting frustrated. And out of my frustration, I'm trying to emphasize to the audience what they can learn from your experience, because Franklin, you're not alone. And the decisions and the logic that you used when you bought those parts are experienced by other viewers on this video. And so I want them to experience it with us so that they don't make the same mistake. They can make their own mistakes. They don't have to make your mistake. And I've learned from it, because I'm not going to let people ship me parts like that ever again. I won't do it, and this is exactly why I won't do it. I have far too much work. I should have 4 people working for me. I'm doing the work of 4 people. But in order for me to control the quality, and in order for me to maintain that control, I have to do it myself. And as a result, everything gets backed up now. And that's why I'm upset. It's not anybody's fault. It's just, there's a reason why I recommend Catherine for the parts list. There's a reason why Catherine doesn't just give one parts list to everybody. It's customized to the person's need, expectation, and budget. And when the person then vetoes the parts list that was so carefully put together for them with all the research Catherine puts in, does no research of their own, and then spends money they don't have, supposedly, I don't know, to buy something they don't need that causes all of this, that's what we can take from this, right? It's just so avoidable, so easily avoidable. You've got to get your head away from all these pretty lights and get into what matters. So it's because of these pretty lights that's holding up everything. And that's what you need to get from this. So when you wonder, why does Carey not like RGB? What does he have against it? What does it hurt? What's the big deal? Ask the 6 people that are waiting. Why do motherboards have 4 DDR slots if they only support dual channel? Because some people need capacity and they don't need speed. It's really not that hard to understand. I didn't mean to give you any attitude on that answer. It is a good question, but it's obvious to me, and I probably, in my mood, I've answered it a bit like a little snarkier than it deserves, and I apologize for that. Jimmy Bateman says, walk away, Carey, take a break and have a Coke. Remember I said that earlier in the build. I said, if you're building and you start to get frustrated or angry, stop. It'll wait for you. It's not going anywhere. Good advice. Glenn says, just get new RAM. Problem solved. It's no big deal. Great, Glenn. I'll go ahead and pay for that and ship that to me, okay? It's no big deal, so you'll just pay for it? That'd be great. We need 2 sticks, 16 gigs each, preferably 3,000 speed, and I'll just wait for that to arrive. This is no big deal, so I'm sure you'll just provide that to me, right? It's no big deal. It's somebody else's wallet. What do I care? It's real easy to spend somebody else's money. It's really easy to do. It's no big deal. You ask Franklin to buy it. Franklin doesn't have the money to buy it. Is Franklin supposed to just wave a magic wand and the memory appears? It's no big deal. No big deal, Glenn. God, I just really despise people who have that attitude. It's like, it's totally inconsiderate and it's callous about value, what things cost. It is a big deal. It's a really big deal. If it wasn't a big deal, you'd be done. Carey needs a hug. Yeah, I probably do. Yep. Douglas wants to know, what software tools do you use for tune-ups? It depends on what I'm doing. For the most part, computers running Windows 10 don't require the tune-ups like operating systems from Microsoft in years past. So these software utilities like CCleaner, Glary, BleachBit, in general, you just don't need to run any of that stuff. You can run the disk cleanup tool by hand, but even then, StorageSense will, if it's not, it will be turned on by default in future Windows 10 updates. Windows 10 is pretty well maintenance free. Even driver updates come in through Windows Update automatically, and they're very, very good at providing you a very current driver and the right driver. Those days of getting drivers where your sound card stops working and your network card stops working, they still occur, but nowhere near as often as they used to. For the most part, the best system tune-up you can do is to clear out your temp files, make sure your Windows is up to date, make sure your browser is up to date, make sure any software you use, check it for updates, make sure they're all up to date. Check your startup, make sure things aren't starting up that don't need to be, and look through your installed programs and remove any that you don't use. As far as, like I say, drivers, for the most part, Windows Update's going to take care of that. If you want your computer to perform faster, buy a solid state drive if you don't already have one, and clone, and start using it. Start using a solid state drive as your boot drive. And if you don't have at least 8 gigs of RAM, make sure that you have 8 gigs of RAM. As far as I can tell, I've never seen a software utility that makes a computer run faster. Never seen it. I've seen some caching utilities that can help perceive that your computer's running faster. And if you have enough RAM for that, it might be worth looking into, but it does come with a potential consequence. If your computer were to have a reset or an unexpected power failure, anything in the cache that isn't yet saved would be lost. But that being said, modern computers are so fast today, it's very rare that I run into a machine that's built within the last, 8 years, that 8 gigs of RAM and an SSD doesn't fix. And so coming at it from a software side, to me, is a complete waste of time. So for the most part, I don't use software utilities except to check the health of the hard drive, measure some temps, maybe get a benchmark to see if it's in the arena that it's supposed to be in. Check the BIOS and make sure those settings are optimized correctly. But usually default settings are all you need. It's usually the customers that are going in there and they're finicking. They're not finicking. They're playing around with settings, trying to get more performance out of something. It often has a negative consequence. In some cases, the machine runs faster but starts crashing more, and in other cases, the machine runs slower, but the person is under the impression, because they read something online or they saw a YouTube video, that they're smarter than the engineers who developed it. Some people just have to learn from experiencing it, and other people who know enough to leave it alone are the ones that generally have the least problems. So it's a great way to learn. Running into these obstacles is a great way to learn, but then when you end up hurting yourself and now you're asking me to undo the mess you made, if you're expecting that for free, it ain't gonna happen. You created your mess, you clean up your mess. But this is a business I'm running, and it's not a business I get rich from. I charge people very low rates, very, very low rates, and I very rarely ever have a computer come back because I didn't fix it right the first time. I'm very thorough and I'm very careful. That being said, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but I'm very happy with, it's very rare that a customer ever has to bring something back to me. Very, very rare, and I'm very proud of that. But I would say, if you're serious about wanting your computer performance to improve, SSD, minimum 8 gigs of RAM. If you can go to 16, that'll also improve your performance. Not as much as an SSD will. And leave your BIOS settings alone. Just leave them alone. Stick with default values. Stop trying to overclock it. If you want reliable, leave it alone. Use it. I know people that work on their car more than they drive it. You want to be that guy? You go be that guy. I can't run a business like that. I would go out of business. It just wouldn't be possible for me to pay the bills at the end of the month. That's just how it works. Yes, Dan the plumber mentions, as I have, Newegg has a special on the Mugen 5. It's $45 until the end of the month. So you've got until Thursday, $45 for that Mugen 5 from Scythe. That is a great deal, a great bargain if I've ever seen one. Even if you don't think you're going to need it for 12 months, I would still buy it today because that will jump to $65 March 1st. So you've got until February 28th. That's Thursday if you want to take advantage of that deal. And the link to that isn't in this video, but it's in Saturday's video for the Mugen 5. Great deal. Thank you for reminding me about that. Carrie, did you know Corsair made gaming speakers? I have to say, the speakers I bought about 10 or 15 years ago are still available for sale today, which tells me they made them right the first time. And that's the Klipsch Pro 2.1s. I don't like surround sound. I just want a left and right and a sub. And I paid $250 for them. Now you can pick them up for $150 or less. They're THX certified. They sound better than my home stereo. Highly recommended. So because I'm so happy with that, when I hear Logitech's got a great set of speakers, or I hear Corsair's got a great set of speakers, I'm like, no, These Klipsch Pro 2.1s, best speakers I've ever owned. And I've never heard anything that compares to them to this day. But again, 2.1. Not interested in surround sound. No interest in surround sound. It's more cables, more wires. It's a mess. You know how I have surround sound? I just turn the volume up. If the volume's loud enough, you don't need surround sound at all. That's my philosophy. There's an interesting suggestion that I want to mention here because I don't know if it's possible. But what they're suggesting is the fans get mounted. It looks like the fan's too thick to be mounted here. The fan is taller. It is not an option to put the fan on top. In other words, even if I take this tray off, as I previously said, the top won't go back on. Regardless of how you mount the fan is too tall. And therefore, when the fan is installed, underneath, like let's say I take this top off of here and I put the fan in, the top won't go back on because this fan is too thick. The fan has to go underneath on this case with this fan, unless you buy separate fans that are thinner. I can't even slide it in. It won't fit. The fan is too thick. It's not an option. So forget what I said about taking this off and mounting that, because I just realized it won't go in. I mean, I appreciate the suggestion, and it was a good idea. It isn't going to happen. Maroof has contributed $5. He says, Carrie, I updated my BIOS by watching one of your videos from earlier. Thank you again for teaching me how to fish. That rocks. You rock, Maroof. Thank you. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame uses Klipsch. Their motto is Keeper of the Sound. I didn't know that. I can just tell you, when it comes to things like monitors, keyboards, mice, and speakers, it's very subjective. It's like asking somebody if something tastes good. You can't know if something tastes good until you taste it. You can know what they think. Well, for me, in the music that I listen to, there's nothing that compares to the Klipsch speakers at any price that I have ever heard that is in any way better than that. But those are my ears and the kind of music that I listen to, the way that I use them. So you might hear them and go, these are crap, and you're not wrong, but neither am I. And the same is true for a monitor. You might look at a monitor and go, that monitor is the best one, and I'll be like, that's the worst monitor I've ever seen. You're not wrong, neither am I. You might say, this is the most comfortable keyboard I've ever typed on. I'd be like, that's the worst keyboard I've ever typed on. You're not wrong, neither am I. You might say this mouse is the best mouse. It's got 18 buttons, they're all configurable with macros and DPI adjustment. And I'd be like, that sucks, I hate that. And you'd be like, this is the best mouse I ever used in my life. So this idea that there's a good or best monitor, keyboard, mouse, speakers is absolutely false. The only one that's good is the one you like. And it doesn't mean it's good for anybody else other than you. And to assume so is very, 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 very wrong. It's delusional. You're not accepting reality. And further, you're not giving consideration of allowing other people to decide for themselves. It's as if you're saying, I know what it's like to be you. I know you. I know what you like. I know what you hear. I know what you taste. I know what you feel. And you're gonna love this. What kind of a person, what's going through your mind to put yourself in that position and be completely unaware of what you just said? It's like, people do this on the internet all the time, and it's one of the biggest problems in this industry. And I have to say something. I can't just watch this occur. People are spending their hard-earned money to buy something some stranger with a fake name says on the internet. People, come on. This isn't rocket science. You can determine what's best for you. All you got to do is taste it. That's how you know if you like it. And by taste it, I mean try it. Just try it. Go to a retail store where the speakers are on display and hear them. Look at the price, look at the warranty. Do they sound good to you? That's all that matters. If everything falls into your check boxes, that's in my budget, it's got peace of mind for the warranty, they sound great, doesn't matter what anybody else says. Even if that person is a musician or a speaker expert, any more than a chef, a professional chef, could put down a plate of chicken wings and you could say, hey, are these chicken wings hot and spicy? Chef says, no, not at all. And he's eating them, not at all. And then you bite into it and you're like, oh my God, my mouth's on fire. Is the chef wrong or are you wrong? Neither one of you are wrong. And that's why it's a huge, huge error in judgment to ask anybody who doesn't know you intimately what you will like to see, hear, or feel. What if I remove the radiator and mount the fans to the radiator? Well, let's take a look at that. So if I mount the fans, let's say I sandwich the fans between the radiator, and I'm assuming that's what you're saying, between this bracket, then the fans, and then the radiator. Now the radiator is going to hit the RAM instead of the fans. So it's not just the fans, it's what's ever going to be hanging down that level is going to bump into that RAM. Whether that's the fans or the radiator, what difference does that make? It's still an obstruction. Here's the good thing. It's a very interesting video, isn't it? Because of a mistake, and this is the thing I try to convey to people. People go, I'm so afraid I'll do something wrong when I buy my parts. But if you buy your parts and you put it all together and you don't have any problems, I mean, you're going to be happy, but you're not going to be like, the feeling you're going to get isn't going to be anywhere near the feeling I'm going to get when I get this resolved. This video is far more interesting than if everything went well. There's far more to learn than if everything went well. And this is the last thing you should be worried about. If anything, you should look forward to this. This is a learning opportunity, and as frustrating as it is, because of my limitation on time and because I have other people waiting, you don't have that problem. You just have to be patient. So if you order something wrong, you can return it. And because parts were ordered over time, the parts have been here far beyond their return period. That's the other problem. When you buy, if you're like, I'm just going to buy this part now and this part next month and this part next month, now you can't return anything. You're outside of your 30-day return window. I need you guys to think about that. But at the same time, this isn't a huge tragedy. This is made for a better, more interesting video. I think you'll agree. So thank you to Franklin. I just wish I had more time. That's all. Can I mount the radiator and fan without this tray? Absolutely not. No. There's nothing to mount it to. If you look at the top of the case, and it's a fair question. It's a fair question. If we take the tray out, let me just set it aside so you guys can see what I can see. I'll just tilt this down. Where am I going to mount that radiator? There's no holes. There's no screw holes here. It's just nothing but the best open area for airflow. And the radiator's not this wide. So even if I could drill holes, I could only secure one part of the radiator, not the other side, and the weight of it would cause it to bend and break off in shipping. I'm not reading that out loud, but that's funny. You know who you are. Would using a low-profile radiator fan work? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, either way, we're spending money, and either way, we're spending time. Client doesn't have the money, I don't have the time. So I'm going to do what I can to help the client to get this done, even if it costs me money, because it's the right thing to do, and I have as much to blame because I'm the one who accepted this. So this is what I talk about, the difference between a hobbyist and an enthusiast, or a hobbyist and an enthusiast compared to a professional. Is a professional holds accountability and liability to somebody else. A hobbyist or an enthusiast only has accountability to themselves. So if they screw up, the only person they're harming is themselves. When you work for somebody else, it is your accountability and it's your liability and it's your responsibility to see the job through in a timely and effective manner and make sure that you meet or exceed all of your customers' expectations, even if it costs you money to do it. That's the cost of being in business. Whether you're paying for advertising, you're paying for coupons to be used, you're paying for marketing, Facebook ads, Google ads, to try and bring in business. Sometimes you have to pay for the business you have just to keep it. And you chalk it off, you write it up, chalk it up as operating expenses. But you got to be very careful because there's not a lot of money to be made in this business on building. So you can only endure so much of that before you just don't have a business anymore. Business is supposed to make money, but you do have to spend money oftentimes to make money. But hopefully you're not spending this much to make this much. because how do you sustain that over any period of time? So, hey guys, thank you for joining me on this adventure. We will pick it up once I have some answers. In the meantime, I have got to start prepping for some other work, and I've got to return some calls to some other clients. So I have no shortage of things to do. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Thank you guys for watching. For all the contributions, let's give another shout out. And I also might have missed some. So let me just double check and make sure everybody gets the credit they deserve. Maroof, Dom Parada, Troll McTrollington, Harry Baldwin, Jim Desposito, Night Owl, Ben Fitzpatrick, Babaco, Troll McTrollington again, Winston Ang Liu, Alistair Collins, Niles Van de Sand, and the first contribution came in today from Roger Hall. Thank you guys so much. The parts that were supposed to go into the Xenos build, those parts went into the case that Winston Ang Liu sent me, that fractal design case. And that is now at my sister's, so she's using that for video editing. Remember I said any money that's contributed to the channel goes back into the channel. So even though that was supposed to go into the Xenos case, I'm still going to do that build, as you can tell. I guess I'll do it in my spare time, but I want to get, you know, like a 9900K. It's got to be something on par with a $2,000 case. I'm not putting $600 worth of parts in a $2,000 case. And I'm not putting parts from 2 years ago into a $2,000 case. So those parts are in good use, going back to the channel, going back to, you know, helping to create more content, more quick tips videos. The very first video done on it was posted earlier today about, what was it titled? It was about RAM, how much RAM is too much. So that's the very first video edited and published from the from that build that was community supported. And I want the community to know that it wasn't money wasted or money that was spent on something else, that that money does go back into the channel. And then it's on me now to take it out of my pocket to buy more modern parts to go into that Xenos case. That's just the position I find myself in. And then when times like this cost me money and time, it leaves me very little of both than to pursue that anytime soon. So that's why it keeps getting delayed. It's stuff like this is a prime example of why other things don't get done. So if you guys are wondering why, what does it take so long? It's hard for me to explain it, but now that it just happened live in front of you, you can hopefully get a better grip of what I'm trying to convey with regards to money and time. And it's going to take a lot of both to get that Xenos build done. And because it's for me and it's not for a customer, as long as I have customers waiting, they are always prioritized. My stuff can wait as long as necessary. So that's, in case you're curious, that explains it. But thank you guys for, you know, being a part of the community, for being supportive, and for your suggestions. You know, even though we haven't had a suggestion here that'll work, I appreciate those suggestions just the same. That's going to wrap it up for me. I hope you enjoyed today's video, give you something to think about. And I intend to see you tomorrow. I have a meeting with the police tomorrow. Because of the ongoing harassment, we're having a meeting about it. And then after that, I'll be back here to stream live. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you all again very, very soon. Until then. Yeah, bye for now.